The whole.
Good morning, everybody. It's April 10th. It's a nice April morning, and I'm here with Clarence Blalock, who is running for insurance commissioner. Clarence, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing all right. We're doing fine this morning. Still recovering from the runoff election we had up here, and you're from Paulding County. You know that. So it was a bit of an ordeal, but we made some progress anyway.
Well,
So anyway, yeah,
runoffs
well,
are
that's the
very
hard.
runoffs are very difficult because you're having to run a whole race in a month. That's the hardest part is the
Right,
time.
right. Yeah, you have no time to get ready for anything hardly, but that's over. Now we're into the primary season, which is why you're here. You're running for insurance commissioner. So, as we now, some of the viewers may have already seen your other video, and we'll talk about the switch as we go through. But
Sure.
like I typically do with any candidate, I always start off letting you tell whatever you think applies about yourself, your background, your history, your family, whatever it is that you want to talk about. So I'm going to turn the screen over to you now and let you do that.
Well, I'm running for this office because I wanted to give the public the option of someone who's experienced candidate who's been part of a winning statewide campaign. Under
Mhm.
John King, rates have increased over 20% this last decade. That's like since 2020. And
Yeah.
we need someone who's not under the thumb of big insurance, like the current commissioner. And the current administration is only finding insurance companies small amounts of money. So they don't really have any incentive to change their bad behavior. And then, for example, one of the larger fines that was issued was for not covering health care that was required by the ACA. And if it's just a slap on the wrist, then I don't expect them to change that behavior, but just make it part of the cost of operation, which is what we're dealing with now. So we deserve better than this, and that's why I'm running.
Okay. Well, thanks. And as insurance commissioner, what would you consider to be? Are there certain issues in particular that you think are more important, like one or two of them that are like your top issues, or what would those be if they're there?
I think the top two issues to the people of Georgia are affordability and transparency.
Hmm.
So, rates are not supposed to be excessive by law, and they just keep going up. So, base, we need to look closer at, how much profits the insurance companies are taking and make sure the rates are not excessive. They were only increasing them enough. They were not just giving them, excessive profits, off the backs of Georgians.
Yeah.
And for transparency, we don't know. I couldn't tell you right now where all the complaints are coming from people who are getting denied health care, getting denied insurance claims. We need a good database of that. We need to basically, once you have data, you can audit, you can make better decisions about where to find and where actions are appropriate. So that's the transparency side.
So you're talking about like having a public database kind of thing where people can access it too.
Yeah, I mean, you want to remove private information, but then once you've
Hmm.
removed that, I want people to know where these issues are happening.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So I think you've already kind of indicated you think the commissioner, the role of it under the Republicans has been too easy on insurance companies. What are some ways that you can sort of realign that or rein that in? Um, as I've talked to some people in about this job, and there's a little confusion, or maybe I'm confused. What exactly can insurance commissioners do in regards to maybe reining in costs and that sort of thing?
Well, the rates, the rate situation, I'll try to explain the easiest way I can. They pass the rates, but we don't set the rates. The
Okay.
insurance commissioner doesn't set them, but they have a
Right.
means to review them and accept or deny them if they're not excessive or discriminatory.
Okay.
So I don't think we're using that. That was a bill that was passed in 2023. So the Bela Parks, when she was running, she wanted to have a law that brought that more directly under the insurance commissioner. And I would support something like that. But
Okay.
we need to use that power. Now, I'm going to say the main power, the main existing power you have is fines. So I want to talk more about, what we're doing now and what I like to do. So that is the strongest power. John King has only fined $42 million since he's been in office since 2019. He came in as an interim commissioner, then he was appointed. He was not the original elected person, but he's been there since about, the middle of 2019. $42 million is what he's fined. That comes out to $4 per Georgian. We're talking
Yeah,
about over the course of 7 years.
right.
So it's not enough. That's not really punitive action. This is like, if you think about the deal with tort reform, when you see the numbers in tort reform, you're like, oh man, that's a lot of money. But if companies are absolutely huge, if you don't find them a certain amount of money, or if they don't lose a certain amount of money in a lawsuit, they're not going to change their behavior. They're just going to make it the cost of doing business.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So it's mainly the fining power, I think, more than anything else that the commissioner
Well, we're
has,
not
right?
we're not using it right now. I
Yeah.
think that's something. It's something that I do believe would bring them more into compliance.
Okay. And King, I think John King is the only Republican. He's the incumbent and he's running again. Is he the only one?
Correct. He is
Okay.
the
Okay.
he's the assumed nominee.
Right. Okay. All right. So, okay, those are some of the issues surrounding this office. Now, let's look a little bit at the politics of it. Let's see, there are five candidates in this race.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's a crowded field. So, what sets you apart from the other Democrats running in this race, in your opinion?
Well,
What
I'm going to talk.
advantages?
I'm going to talk about one candidate in particular. So
Okay.
I don't have the political baggage of Keisha Waits. So
Right.
Keisha Waits has multiple fines from the state ethics regarding her filings, her expenditures, her reports themselves. She's under a consent decree to pay those. The city of Atlanta has fined her $25,000. She's currently appealing that. The city of Atlanta hasn't decided whether or not they're going to criminally charge her for that.
Mhm.
So if she was the nominee, my concern is what that would mean for November, or even if she won, what would it mean after November? Would we have a situation like Beck where, we have someone who gets removed? I don't think we want that on the ticket for November. It just greatly concerns me. Those are just huge potential liabilities.
All right.
So, the other people running, I met some of them. They're fine. They all bring something different to the table. I mean, she's the one who really concerns me. I
Mhm.
mean, the guy Thomas Dean, he did take us all to basically court to try to get us off the ballot, and that did not work. I think you
Why?
just
Why did he do that? Just out of curiosity, why did he do that?
I I spoke to him, and if you speak to him and you say like, well, I can take you off the, they can remove you from the case. So he had something. He thought that the other four people running for the Democratic nomination and John King were not eligible. I think he reads the law as an interpretation. There's a section about incumbents where he says small business owners can't be in office in the state of Georgia. They can't serve. And that's
No.
just not really correct because there's 100 people who list their profession as small business owner like myself.
Mhm.
And that whole section, it's about conflicts of interest of an elected official. So the only person who's elected is John King. None
Right.
of us are elected. It just that section of law wasn't applicable. I you'd have to ask him exactly what he thinks, but he's kind of just reading things that I don't think anyone else sees as in the law.
Okay. So
So,
basically, he thought there was a you can't be a small business owner,
right.
and okay, and that's already been dismissed and taken
Yes.
care of. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
What?
it was taken care of about 2 weeks ago. So
Okay.
that's done. I mean, this is a statewide race. You can live anywhere in Georgia. Nobody was challenging my residency. Most of these are residency challenges. It's a it's kind of a very strange way to challenge it. I'm not even aware of a case like that, where someone challenged, based on your profession. That's
Right.
you're free to go. You're free to have whatever profession you want. Yeah, there's a section
Right.
of law about like if your business dealt with insurance companies, but my business is in GIS analysis and things like that and making maps. I don't do anything
Mhm.
with the insurance company in my small business. So, it
Right.
just wasn't applicable. Um, but yeah, I mean, as far as like why people do things, I can't really say. I just think I think he does appear to be earnest, and I think he's just. I'd asked him, I go, did you take this to a lawyer? And he said, well, I'm a paralegal. And I'm like, but no lawyer would take this,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so I kind of just hope he, from this point on, he just realizes, you get this position because the people give it to you in an election. You can't really try to get everyone thrown off the ballot and win that way.
Right. Right. Well, I know there are legal challenges. We saw that last year in the Public Service Commission and that sort of thing. And speaking of that, let's talk about political strategy a little bit. You were involved in that PSC campaign last year.
Right.
Uh, there was a runoff, and there's probably going to be a runoff in this one with five candidates. I would assume that's at least a likelihood. Are there anything you can say about how you would approach this primary and runoff just as a candidate?
Yes.
Um, what's your view of how to approach this successfully?
Well, I don't want to go too involved into my actual plans, but
Right.
I do believe messaging really matters. You want to be clear and concise and to the point,
Hmm.
which just means I'm going to tell people about why I would be a good choice, what the issues are. And when people are voting, this is way down the ballot. And it's just really making sure people don't pass this one up. Because I think there's going to be a lot of people. You're going to have a lot of undervotes in this race, I believe. They're
Yeah.
going to come in, all sauce a given. They're really excited about their choices for governor. And that's going to sort of motivate this whole race. But then when you get to what I would call, the undercard, these other races, I hope that I'm able to reach people by various means, getting out here in the public, just other means too, and just make them, interested in this race and understand that, this is about picking your favorite Democrat to run in November. Like, who is the person who can win? We haven't won these offices, and I think this would be 20 years, 20 years
Yeah.
plus. So,
Yeah.
I'm just looking. I enjoy getting out here and talking to people and engaging with them and just educating them about the race. So that's a part of my plan.
Okay. And moving on, like if you become the nominee, looking into November, you've gone through that experience as on I think on both sides of the approach. What can you say about how do we build a successful campaign? I've talked to other statewide candidates and talked a little bit about the coordinated campaign effort, and that hasn't always worked well for Democrats. What do you see as important in making this a successful statewide campaign all the way up and down the ballot?
Well, campaigns need money to operate. So first of all, I'm working on building a robust fundraising operation that involves direct contact. So I'm building that now. I would expand upon it, if I was the nominee. And I would have enough to work with the other nominees. I believe the people who are on the undercard is sort of like, I'm not gonna say it was a crabs in a barrel type approach in the past,
Hmm.
but I do want closer coordination between the nominees, and that's what I'm gonna really push for. Where I could focus on an area like Dalton or Gwinnett or certain areas where I think there are kind of like latent votes out there, and just if we can just bring people into the process and voting for Democrats, it's going to benefit all of us. I'm not just trying to get elected myself because what would be the point of me just getting elected without a Democratic governor? Because the
Yeah,
Democratic governor is the person who sets budgets. So, I mean,
right.
like when Mark Taylor was elected, they stripped away a lot of his power because he was the only Democrat there.
Hmm.
So it's very important you elect Democrats up and down the ballot and you make sure people aren't, splitting their ticket. But I think there's enough votes of people who are inclined to vote for us who just aren't engaged are typical voters. So I think we just focusing on bringing them out is very important.
Okay. Okay. And if you are elected in November, you become the insurance commissioner to start of next year. What experiences do you bring with you from your past that would help you become the effective head of this department in the state government?
I have a nice diversity of experience. I've been a small business owner. I, co-manage a statewide campaign. I worked for the coordinated campaign for Kamala Harris in 2024. I also used to work for city government. I have 10 years experience in city government. I was the deputy director of the planning department in Forest Park. So I'm not new to government, and I'll bring all that to the office. And what I believe is that you have to have an open mind. You have to always be willing to listen. And it's always important to surround yourself with the best people. And if you surround yourself with the best people, you're getting the best advice and you're able to do what's right for Georgians.
Okay. Well, Clarence, thank you. We've covered a lot of ground here and getting down toward the end of our set of questions here. So, what I like to do at the end is always turn it over to the candidate and let you do your 1, 2 minute, whatever it is, stump speech on why Georgians should elect you as the next insurance commissioner. So, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you close it out with that.
Well, thank you for this opportunity to, speak directly to the voters. We don't have many of those opportunities, unfortunately. I kind of wish it was more. I have to go out and go to events myself, but it's good to just to be able to reach people online and in this format. So I'd say electability matters and ethics matter. And I just want people to understand like those are things that matter a lot to me. And electability, our last two nominees, they owned insurance same person, but it was someone who owned an insurance agency, and they didn't make it. It doesn't mean you're going to win if you have that type of background. It's fine to be from
Mhm.
the industry, but I think it's good to have the perspective of not being in the industry as well. So I like to bring all this political experience I have, and this was the first. Peter Hubbard was the first non-federal statewide candidate to win in 19 years.
Right.
So I think that's just a record of success that people should be interested in. They should be interested in having me on the ticket. And that if I'm elected, I'm going to wake up every day. I'm going to think about everyday Georgians, the working class, the middle class. I think that's what's different about Democrats is that we think about people like that all the time and
Mhm.
just, their situation. And I think we could just do a lot better. So if I'm elected, I just want to, get out there, work hard every day, and just make the people of Georgia proud.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And I know that you being part of the Hubbard campaign was had to be a great learning experience on how to successfully win a statewide race. And so I hope you can bring that to our ticket here in the future. And I want to thank you for your time today. Thank you so much for coming by and explaining a little bit about how this office works that most people, including myself, don't know a whole lot about. So I appreciate that. And thank you for just your time and good luck to you in the weeks ahead.
All right. Well, thank you, Tom, and thank you for having me.
All right. We'll see you.